Welcome back from the break. We hope you're able to get something refreshing to drink. Moving into our next presentation, it will review drug amount report examples and next-gen portal best practices for successful report submission. Our first presenter, Obinna Ugwu-Oju, is a division director in CDER OPQ Office of Surveillance, where he oversees the catalog of CDER-regulated manufacturing facilities and products and provides oversight to the CDER site selection model that is used to prioritize sites for risk-based surveillance inspection. Our final presenter in this session is Edward Hallissey from the Office of Strategic Programs. He's a computer scientist, and in his role at FDA, it is focused specifically on managing the implementation of new systems and technologies necessary to fulfill the requirements of congressional acts and mandates, integrating the needs and responsibilities of legal, policy, regulatory, and technology interests to enable both FDA and industry to perform their respective functions as efficiently and accurately as possible. Please join me to welcome our first presenter, Obinna.
Thank you for that introduction. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today on FDA CARES Drug Amount Reporting Program. My colleagues that presented before me have provided information on CARES Drug Amount Reporting regulatory background, the purpose of CARES Drug Amount Reporting, and how FDA intends to use CARES Drug Amount data submitted by registrants. They also discussed the framework for submitting CARES Drug Amount report. My presentation will focus on going through some reporting examples that we hope will help clarify how reports should be prepared by registrants or their authorized agents before they are submitted through the NextGen portal. I'm a division director in CDER Office of Pharmaceutical Quality and the product owner of CARES Drug Amount Reporting Integrated Project Team. Our team is responsible for managing the CARES Drug Amount Reporting Portal, triaging and responding to questions from the industry on the CARES Drug Amount Reporting Draft Guidance. In this presentation, I will go over some examples on how to prepare reports for finished dosage form products, active pharmaceutical ingredients, drugs for further processing, and kits with multiple components. I will also describe key terminologies referenced in the slides. It is important to note that FDA has designed the CARES Drug Amount Reporting Scheme to match how each drug is listed in FDA's Electronic Drug Registration and Listing System, EDRALIS. So, we expect the report submitted to match the packaging configuration listed with FDA. As I go through the examples, I will be noting instances where we have observed discrepancies in the reports already submitted. Here are some of the key terminologies used in this presentation. Single-level packaging means that a drug product or substance is packaged in one container. Multi-level packaging means that a drug product is packaged in multiple container layers. The outermost layer of packaging is the package type associated with the NDC assigned to the drug manufactured for commercial distribution. The innermost layer of packaging is the package type directly enclosing the drug product or substance. I would like to note that for the rest of my presentation, I will be using the term manufactured and released, which means manufactured for commercial distribution and released. For definition of manufactured for commercial distribution, please see 21 CFR 207.1. And for the purpose of this guidance, released means that the batch or lot has been determined to conform to final specification. Again, please see 21 CFR 211.1. 165. The first example will show how to prepare a report for single-level package finished dosage form drug product. For single-level packaging, the amount reported should correspond to the quantity of the package type associated with the NDC assigned to the product. In this example, a drug is packaged in a bottle containing 100 tablets. The submitter should report the number of bottles manufactured and released and not the number of tablets. For single-level package products, FDA recommends that only outermost package quantity should be reported. In this case, 2,000 bottles were manufactured and released for the calendar year, so that amount should be reported for the outermost quantity released. And since there's no inner package for single-level package product, the innermost package section should be left blank. And based on the reports that have been submitted for calendar year 2020 and 21 for single-level products, we have seen situations where the same quantity released were submitted for both outermost and innermost package. We want to emphasize that for single-level package products, only the outermost package values should be filled in, and there should be no values entered for the innermost package. This second example will illustrate how to prepare a report for multi-level packaged finished dosage form drug product, and only the outermost packaging has been assigned an NDC. Multi-level packaged products should be reported using the NDC assigned to the outermost layer of packaging, and data should be submitted for both the outermost and innermost packages. In this example, one case contains 96 cartons, and one carton contains 5 bottles, and one bottle contains 60 capsules. The outermost packaging quantity should be reported in cases, while the innermost packaging quantity should be reported in bottles. If 20 cases were manufactured and released for the calendar year, then 20 cases should be filled in for the outermost quantity released, which translates to 9,600 bottles for the innermost quantity. The innermost quantity value is obtained by multiplying 20 cases by 96 cartons by 5 bottles, which equals 9,600 bottles. Again, based on the reports that have been submitted for calendar year 2020 and calendar year 2021, we have seen situations where the amount of quantity released for the outermost package does not accurately correlate to the innermost quantity based on how the NDCs were listed in e-drawlers. This example will illustrate how to prepare a report for multi-level packaged finished dosage form drug product, where additional package levels has also been assigned NDCs, and where the inner package configuration may sometimes be distributed separately outside of the multi-level package configuration. In this example, only NDC 12340-999-02 was manufactured and released for the calendar year. In this situation, if an establishment manufactured and released 20 cartons, then 20 cartons should be reported for the outermost quantity released, and 300 blister packs for the innermost quantity released. The innermost quantity value is obtained by multiplying 20 cartons by 3 pouches by 5 blister packs, which equals 300 blister packs. In the next example, we will examine a scenario where the inner NDC 12340-999-01 was also separately manufactured and released. This example will show how to prepare a report for multi-level packaged finished dosage form drug product, where an inner package also had an NDC assigned and was separately manufactured and released for the calendar year. In this situation, if the establishment manufactured and released 20 cartons of NDC 12340-9902 and also separately manufactured and released 500 pouches of NDC 12340-999-01 outside of the carton level package configuration for NDC 12340-999-02. For NDC 12340-999-02, 20 cartons should be reported for the outermost quantity released and 300 blister packs for the innermost quantity released. And for NDC 12340-999-01, 500 pouches should be reported for the outermost quantity released, and 2,500 blister packs should be reported for the innermost quantity released. This example will illustrate how to prepare a report for an application product like an ANDA, where the submitter wants to use CARES report to include distribution data required to be submitted in an annual report under 21 CFR 314.81 for the listed NDC. And the drug associated with the NDC was also distributed outside of the United States. In this example, an establishment manufactured and released 20 cases for the calendar year. And out of the 20 cases, 3 cases were distributed for foreign use. In this case, the submitter would fill in 20 cases for the outermost quantity released and 9,600 bottles for the innermost quantity released. Next, submitter will fill in 3 cases for outermost quantity distributed non-US and 1,400 bottles for the innermost quantity distributed non-US. In this example, the quantity distributed non-US field for CARES report will correspond to what would have been reported for quantity distributed for foreign use when submitting distribution data for annual report. Again, based on reports that have been submitted for calendar year 2020 and 2021, we have seen situations where manufacturers of non-application products that are not subject to annual reports requirements are submitting data points for quantity distributed non-US. We want to emphasize that this field should only be used for application products where applicable. This example applies to only foreign establishments and shows how to prepare a report for listed products where the manufacturer does not know at the time of reporting how much of the listed product will be imported or offered for import into the United States. If the submitter does not know at the time of reporting how many of the listed products will be imported or offered for import into the United States, then they will indicate that by entering yes into the market unknown field. Please note that when entering data manually in the portal, you will indicate yes by selecting market unknown checkbox. If you're preparing a CSV file for upload, you'll enter the text yes in the market unknown column in the CSV file. In this example, if 10 cases were manufactured and released for the calendar year, and the submitter does not know how much was offered for import at the time the report is being prepared, then 10 cases should be entered for the outermost quantity and 4,800 bottles for the innermost quantity. The market unknown field should be selected as yes. Submitting reports for active pharmaceutical ingredients is very similar to finished dosage form products. In this example, if an establishment manufactured and released 20 drums for the calendar year, then 20 drums should be entered for outermost quantity released. And since there is no inner package for single level packaging, the innermost quantity released should be left blank. In this example, we'll look into a scenario where an API was manufactured and released for the calendar year, but at the time of reporting, the submitter does not know how much was offered for import into the United States. In this situation, again as the one I described for the FDF, if an establishment manufactured and released 20 drums for the calendar year, but does not know exactly how much of the API was imported or offered for import into the United States at the time of reporting, then they will indicate that by entering yes into the market unknown field. So 20 drums should be entered for the outermost quantity released. And since there is no innermost package, the innermost package quantity should be left blank. In this example, we will show that preparing a report for drugs for further processing is very similar to finished dosage form products. If an establishment manufactured and released 3 drums for the calendar year, then 3 drums should be entered for outermost quantity released. And since there is no innermost packaging, the innermost quantity released should be left blank. As noted in the very first example of this presentation, the submitter should report the number of drums manufactured and released and not the number of capsules. In this last example, we describe how to prepare a report for drug items packaged in a kit. In an earlier presentation on registration and listings pertaining to drug amount reporting, my colleague described a kit as co-packaged drug products that includes at least one drug item and must have its own NDC. In this example, if a submitter is preparing a report for a drug packaged as kit and 30 cartons of the kit were manufactured and released for the calendar year, then the submitter should enter 30 cartons for the outermost quantity released. Individual contents of the kit should not be reported as innermost quantities. So, the innermost quantity fields should be left blank. In this presentation, we have tried to show examples for how drug amounts reports should be prepared for finished dosage form products, active pharmaceutical ingredients, drugs for further processing, and kits. We also gave examples with different packaging configuration, with emphasis on critical data elements like quantity released, quantity distributed non-US, and market unknown. We know that you may still have questions, and we stand ready to answer your questions at this webinar. Additionally, questions may also be submitted to FDA contacts that I will reference in the next slide. We have many resources to help registrants or the authorized agents in preparing and submitting CARES drug amount report. The CARES Act link on this site contains both regulatory and technical information on how to report drug amount data. The FDA draft guidance for the industry on reporting amount of listed drugs and biological products contains the current thinking of FDA on reporting amount of listed drugs. It also contains a series of questions and answers that can be very helpful to registrants of drug establishment or their authorized agent. The Technical Conformance Guide, which supplements the FDA draft guidance and provides more explanation on how first-time users will access FDA NextGen portal. The different methods on how registrants of drug establishments or their agents can submit report. We also have data element descriptions and examples on how to submit single and multi-level package product. Lastly, we also have the NextGen portal registration guide with instructions on how to register with the portal. reference user guide with step-by-step process on how to use the portal to submit report. We also have CSV template and instructions for uploading report using CSV file. The website also contains email and phone contacts for Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research CBER, Center for Drug Evaluation and Research CDER, and Center for Veterinary Medicine CBM. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening. I'll be taking questions during the panel discussions.
Thank you for that presentation, Obinna. Now, we will move on to discuss more in detail some tips about best practices for submitting data in the NextGen portal. To start off, we're going to play a video on submitting a CARES drug amount report in a CSV file. The majority of the CARES reports are submitted via a CSV file, and this video provides a step-by-step guide regarding report submission in the NextGen portal. Now, some of you may have already viewed this video before, as it is available on FDA's webpage. However, we thought it would be helpful to refresh your memory on some of these best practices, and also in the event that you have not seen this video before. So we'll go ahead and play the video narrated by our Office of Pharmaceutical Quality's Operations Research Analyst, Jennifer Hyland, which is about 9 minutes in duration. And then our Office of Strategic Programs Project Management Officer, Ed Hallissey, will provide some more detailed insight about data submission into the portal. And then we'll head into an open Q&A session with audience participation. So with that, we will go ahead and play the video.
Hello, this is Jennifer Hyland in the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research at the Food and Drug Administration. This presentation shows how to upload data from a CSV file in the CDER NextGen portal for a CARES Act amount information report. These slides show how to enter the NextGen portal and submit a report. The final slide shows additional resources. The CDER NextGen portal can be used to submit a CARES Act amount information report to the FDA. There is detailed information on the FDA webpage for CARES Act drug shortage mitigation efforts at the link shown. There are also additional resources, such as documents showing how to create a NextGen portal account or how to fill in a CSV file for submitting information. Step 1. First, sign in on the CDER NextGen portal homepage. There is a link to the NextGen portal on the CARES Act Drug Shortage Mitigation Efforts webpage. Step 2. From the main menu, click CARES Act Amount Information Reporting. Step 3. The next screen is the landing page. Draft reports and submitted reports appear here as shown in the image below. If no reports have been created yet, the screen will look like the image on the right. Click New Report at the top of the screen. Step 4. On the introduction screen, review the Getting Started information for submitting a CARES Act amount information report. Section descriptions of the submission process are displayed. Step 5. Click Next. Step 6. On the Submitter Information screen, select if you are submitting as a registrant or authorized agent. Step 7. Review the pre-populated information in the Profile Information section and then click Next. Contact technical support if any fields need to be updated. Step 8. In the Submission section, select the year that the report will cover. Data is to be submitted by the calendar year. Submit a separate report for each calendar year. Step 9. If you are submitting a replacement report for a previous submission, check Yes. Then, select the report ID of the previous submission from the drop-down menu. The date and time that the previous submission was submitted will be displayed. Step 10. Select that you would like to submit product data via CSV file. Step 11. In the confirmation screen, click Continue. Step 12. Click and download the template. There are also instructions that can be downloaded. Note, the template will download with an XLSX extension. Prior to uploading, save the document with a CSV extension. If a file contains multiple tabs, save each tab as a separate CSV file. Each file should contain fewer than 200,000 lines. Only one file at a time can be processed. Repeat the submission process to submit another file. Step 13. Enter the requested information in the CSV template or construct your own CSV file to match this template. Then, save the document to your computer as a CSV file. The portal requires that each DUNS, business operation, NDC combination have 13 lines, one for each month and one for the annual total. Note, there is a separate document that describes how to enter data into a CSV file. It is called CARES Act Amount Information Reporting CSV Template Instructions. Step 14. Once all data has been entered into the CSV file, upload the data from the document into the portal by Option 1, clicking Upload Files and selecting the CSV file, or Option 2, dragging and dropping the CSV file onto or drop files. Step 15. When the status bar indicates that the data has finished uploading, click Done. Step 16. Your file is now being processed. You will receive an email once processing is complete. Exit the submission page by clicking Save and Save and Close. Step 17. Once you receive an email confirming the processing of your CSV file, return to the landing page and click on the report ID. Processing the file usually takes a few minutes. Depending on the size of the file or the number of files being processed, it may take longer. Note, if you need to update your CSV file, please click on the X next to the old file name to remove it and then upload the updated CSV file. Step 18. After validation, the report can be saved or submitted. To submit the report, check the box in the Certifications section to affirm that the information you provided in this submission is correct, and then click Submit. Click Save to keep the report for later, or click Delete to remove the submission. Step 19. In the confirmation screen, click Submit to send the report. Click Cancel to return to the submission section. Step 20. After clicking on Submit, there will be a confirmation screen to confirm your report was submitted to the FDA. Click Return Home to return to the landing page or log out, or click New Report to submit a new report. This section describes 3 types of submission errors that the NextGen portal can detect after a CSV file is uploaded. The email sent after processing is completed will either state that there were no errors or specify one of 3 different types of errors. Return to the landing page and click on the draft submission to review the error messages and submitted data. On the submission page, click View Results to view messages about the error or errors. Depending on the error type, you can either Option 1, proceed with the submission, or Option 2, remove the CSV file, and upload a corrected CSV file. The three error types are called validation, hierarchy, and parsing. A validation error occurs when at least one DUNS, NDC, and/or source NDC was found to not match values in the drug listings database. Data may still be submitted without updating. A hierarchy error occurs when one or more required values are missing. The CSV file should be removed and an updated CSV file should be uploaded. A parsing error occurs when at least one value could not be processed, such as having an incorrect format or being the wrong data type. The CSV file should be removed and an updated CSV file should be uploaded. Technical support and resources. The final slide contains links to additional resources for using the CDER NextGen portal. The email address for technical support is shown. It is edmsupport@fda.hhs.gov. Thank you for your time and attention.
Hello, I'm Ed Hallissey, Project Manager for the CARES Act Amount Reporting System in the Office of Business Informatics and FDA Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. In this section, we're going to look a little more in detail at the CSV files themselves and some of what we have learned over the past several months of seeing this system in use. We'll look at the CSV format and some examples, common CSV errors, and some further resources. On this page, we are looking at what constitutes a submission for a single drug product. That is an establishment DUNS, a business operation, and an NDC for all 13 rows. That is rows January through December and the row for the annual total. Here we are looking at a single submission for two different drug products. And as you see, the establishment DUNS is the same throughout, and the NDC number and the business operation is different for the first submission, which is actually from the previous page, and the second submission. And in the second submission, you see that there is no innermost quantity that is recorded here, as that is an API manufacturer. So there is a container of drugs with just the outermost quantity recorded. This page is impossible to read, but this shows that there are 3 different drug products. The third is for a separate establishment, and this is just to illustrate that you can see differences between the drug products just by visual inspection of the screen itself. This is a view of what the CSV file really looks like underneath when you're not using the Excel format to view it. It's a lot harder to read, and there are a lot of places where it's easy to miss an element or another that would cause errors or issues down the line. So let's look at what some of those issues and errors are. In the previous presentation, we saw that the 3 errors that can be returned upon submission are validation, hierarchy, and parsing. Validation and hierarchy errors carry with them some information about why they are there. Parsing errors do not, as a nature of the parsing process. And so it can be tricky to figure out why exactly the errors exist. The top 3 reasons for parsing errors all have to do with commas. And that is because a comma separated value file is looking specifically for commas to understand what comes next and the information that should be there. It's important to make sure that all semicolons in a file are replaced with commas. The semicolon replacement can happen as a result of conversion from another data source, from an Excel file conversion that happens, having quotes in place so that a comma can be preserved in a number in the thousands will also give a problem. And any erroneous commas that exist at the end of the file that aren't necessarily cleaned up or noticed at the beginning will also give an error. Quotation marks should not be used. Interestingly, the system will only accept lowercase .csv extension. This is an easy one to check for, a lot easier to find than misplaced comma. And this isn't so much a cause for an error, but just a show that any of these are acceptable end-of-line characters, in case there's any confusion. And also for general knowledge, default encoding UTF-8 encoding are acceptable when you're going from an Excel to an actual CSV file. Here we see the previous excerpt of a CSV file, and this is on the screen to show you how easy it is to overlook some of the errors you might get in a file that has improperly placed characters. The Excel files were a lot easier to look at and see what should be where. This might look okay, or you might have noticed the quotes in the first line. In addition to those quotes, there are 19 other misplaced semicolons or missing commas in this file. It is critical to have a system to generate these files, edit these files, and to be able to go back and review these files that is systematic and methodical in order to avoid some larger errors with not being able to find parsing issues in much larger files. A general question, not specifically related to CSV files, but that do come up with the CSV process, is do we need to go back to the portal after we make the submission? It might not be really clear at the time if you do. The short answer is not really, only if you have problems. But you'll only know that after you review the email that you get back from the system. If the system shows you that your file has processed successfully, you do not need to go back to the CDER NextGen portal. However, if there is an error that is reported to you in email, you do have to go back to the CDER NextGen portal and correct the error. Now for some additional resources in this area. What you see on the screen is an excerpt from the CARES Act Drug Shortage Mitigation page, and this highlighted box is found at the very bottom of that page and contains a wealth of information related to the portal usage, and the processing of CSV files. As you'll see, it contains a link to the NextGen portal, the registration guide, which contains information for getting onto and registering in the system if you have not already, an extensive reference guide for the program overall, the CSV template and CSV instructions, which contain very detailed information about what types of information can go into which field and how it should be entered. All the way at the bottom, you will see the email for the technical support for the CARES portal, and that is edmsupport@fda.hhs.gov. That is the email you send to request information about your submission, about issues that you have, about errors, or anything technically related. The drug amount reporting at fda.hhs.gov email is for questions about the policy, about what to report, and questions you have in that area.
Thank you for the great presentation. Joining us on the Q&A panel, we welcome Danil Grabarov, who served in CDER's Office of Business Informatics since 2014. As a computer scientist, Danil leads multiple information technology and process improvement initiatives, such as CDER Next Gen portal releases. As a reminder, if you haven't had a chance to submit your questions into the Q&A chat pod, please do so now. We'll answer as many questions as time allows. Looks like we have some questions coming in right now. And the first group of questions will be directed to Obinna Ugwu-Oju. And here is the first question. Is the market unknown field only for application drug products? Is it not applicable to API or OTC?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So, market unknown field is applicable to both application product and OTC product. The key is that the establishment must be a foreign establishment, and at the time they're preparing their report, about to submit it, if they do not know how much of that listed drug product was exported or offered for import to the United States, then they'll check the market unknown field. So it could be used for both application and non-application products.
Thanks for responding to that question. We do have another question for Obinna, and here is the question. How do you report a kit with a drug that has an NDC, but the kit has its own NDC?
Thank you for that question again. So it depends. If the drug that is part of the kit was distributed on its own, then that particular drug, the amount for that drug should be reported. But if it was distributed as with the kit contained the drug, then only the kit NDC should be reported, not the drug that is part of the kit. I want to kind of emphasize again that for kit, I did mention that we FDA made the decision to only have the outermost amount reported for kits. So all the items that are packaged with the kit were not requiring the inner amount to be reported. And there was some consideration that we undertook because the kits are a little bit different from what I'll call the multi-package product, where I talked about the inner and outer NDC. So kits, we only want the outermost quantity distributed to be reported, and then we will figure out, the innermost items in terms of when we're trying to calculate from our analysis what to do with the kit. So that's it.
Thank you for responding to that question. We have a few more questions that came in for Obinna, and here is the next question. When drugs for further processing are packaged and distributed, as an example, XX tablets in a bag or 2 bags per drum, should the bags be registered as the innermost package?
So thank you again for that question. When it comes to drugs for further processing, and actually for all drugs, right? So CARE's drug amount reporting, as I mentioned in my presentation, is recommending that you report based on how your drug product is listed with FDA. So let's start with that, right? So if that particular drug for further processing was put in a bag and then put in a drum, then obviously the drum is the outermost packaging, and then the innermost is the bag, because that's the packaging enclosing the drug product, which is the capsules. So in that instance, you will report the drum as the outermost quantity, and then the innermost packaging quantity will be the bag.
Thank you for responding to that question. We have one more question just came in from Obinna, and here is the question. How do we know if the reports we have already submitted were submitted correctly? Will we get feedback on our reporting?
Yes. So when you submit your data, so when you submit your report, there will be an email acknowledgement. And if for some reason, if we have any issues with your data, we'll probably be reaching out to you. And we did mention in our presentation that there is we have staffs that are available to answer questions, or if you have any question for some reason you did not get an email back from us after you submitted your report, then please submit your question to the drug amount reporting inbox. We'll be ready to answer that question.
Thank you for responding to that group of questions. The next few questions will be going towards our next panelist, Edward Hallissey, and here is the first question. Given the needed structure and consistency with listed NDCs, was SPL considered?
Hi, thanks. This is Ed, and thanks for the question. And yes, it actually was considered. As this was a new program, we were looking at it from the ground up, thinking about the best way to structure the data, format the data, how we're going to send the data back and forth. And SPL was considered at the outset. We had some options analysis on whether or not to use it. In the end, because we were going to be doing a lot with the data, moving it around, parsing it as necessary to get the data into the system and usable for us, we found through some testing and looking at what we could do with it that using just a very basic comma separated values file would be the easiest, most lightweight, and easiest to modify as time went on. And even though we did consider SPL for some time, that's why we decided to not go with SPL or any other data formats and do comma separated value files.
Thank you for responding to that question. We've got another question for Ed, and here is the question. From a practical standpoint, where does one begin to start the process? And are there any detailed instructions that can be followed along the way?
Yeah, thanks. That is an excellent question. And we've tried to point to that at certain places in our presentations here, and just in general. Really, the best place to start with all of this is the CARES Act Drug Shortage and Mitigation page. You're probably familiar with it if you're in here already, and I highlighted it during my presentation. There are a number of resources for the portal and for CSV files for processing and all that down at the bottom of the page in the yellow box that's there. There's a link for the portal itself, and once you go there, there are A lot of helpful resources there. On the drug shortage and mitigation page right there, along with the portal link, there is a registration guide, which gives a lot of detail on getting into the system, who to contact, what you need to set up your account. There is a whole reference manual for what you need to do in the system, how to use the system, how to send information in manually or in a CSV file. And then in the same box, there are more detailed manuals and information on constructing the CSV file, a CSV template there for use, webinars on all that. So starting on that page and using those resources that are tightly packed all together is definitely the best way to go. Also, once you are on the portal and you are registered and logged in, there are a number of resources there. You can get to the CSV templates and instructions there also as well. And if you run into any problems at all, you should see the email in both places, edmsupport@fda.hhs.gov. That goes directly to our technical team who works on the system itself. So, you can lean on that as well if you're not getting your answers in all of the resources that are on the drug shortage and mitigation plays.
Thank you for responding to that question. We have one more question for Ed, and here is the question. I have previously submitted a CARES report, but we recently changed our DUNS number and our address. Do I need to create a new account to submit the new report?
Thank you. That's a good question, and it might not be clear actually once you're first navigating in the portal or after you send a submission or two. You do not need to create a new account. It might seem like you do because once you log in, your profile information is locked. That is your information for your company that you're sending in on behalf of them, the amount information. If you want to keep the same account but just change or update address information or a DUNS number, what you need to do in that case is to contact the same email, EDM support, and let them know the updates that you need to make in the profile, and they will do it for you, and then you can verify that that information is correct.
Thank you for responding to that question. Moving on to our next panelist, we did have a question directed to Danil Grabarov, and here is the question. Is there a way to look at the CSV file without ruining the format to check for commas and other things?
So the best suggestion that I can give here is to check the file against the instructions, and especially the list that we have within the instructions for some of the most commonly occurring issues that previous presenters mentioned, such as there shouldn't be any quotation mark within the file, the extension should be .csv, and then you should just attempt to upload the file, and we have a built-in parser that will also determine if there is an issue. So if that is successful, then that tells you that the structure is correct.
Thank you for responding to that question. Moving back to the head of our panel, we do have a few more questions for Obinna Ugwu-Oju. And here is the first question. If a product is manufactured at a CMO and goes to a client or an applicant for further processing into an FDF and packaging, what does the CMO report?
Thank you for that question. So as we mentioned, the CARES reporting applies to listed drug product. So if the CMO manufactured the product and listed it at its and sent it to somebody else, right? The the CMO is required to report based on the amount that they manufactured, which they have an NDC for. Then further down the road, the person that received the drug product now repackages that product, essentially putting it into, I'm assuming, the form of distribution, how it will be distributed. That product will need to be listed by that establishment, whoever received it, right? Because they're going to be performing a manufacturing activity. They will now also report drug amount for what they repackaged. Obviously, the CMO wouldn't know how that person that received the product repackaged it. So the person that received that is required to register and list and then report based on how they repackaged that drug product. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. We do have a couple more questions for Obinna, and here is the next question. Is the portal open now for reporting products? If not, when will it be open for reporting? And is there a direct link to the portal?
First question, yes, the portal is open and available for reporting. And I believe we do have a direct link, but I will check with our tech team and get back to you. But it's open now, and I think our earlier presenters mentioned that you can submit your report now if you have it. So it's available for you to submit your calendar year 2020 data, calendar year 2021 data. And if you have any question, please send an email to drugamountreporting@fda.gov, fda.gov, and we will be able to answer your question.
Thank you for responding to that group of questions. Moving on to our next panelist, we do have a few more questions come in for Edward Hallissey. And here is the first question for Ed. How long does it take to know if the submission was successful with the email acknowledgement or successful submission status?
Thank you. Really great, very reasonable tactical question. That email response that you receive after you submit the CSV file should come very quickly. It should come within a minute or so. Generally, that's about how long it should take. Understand, though, that it is a shared system. So there are times when there are a good number of submissions that are going through the system all at once. And in certain cases like that, it could take an extended amount of time. It might seem like longer than is reasonable when you're trying to get in a submission near a deadline like everybody else is, or that other people are using the system at the same time. In that case, it's totally reasonable to contact our support team and see if something happened. You could go back into the system, you could log back into the portal and see, is your submission still pending? And then it's still being processed, versus if you don't see it actually submitted at all.
Thank you for responding to that question. Looks like we have time for just one more question. We're going to try to squeeze in there the questions for Ed, and here is the question. Is it necessary to input data manually into the CSV file?
Thank you. I realize we're at 12:30. I'll try and do this one real quick. That question could mean a lot, but I think this is an important one to field. We wanted to be able to use a CSV file, as mentioned before, for ease of use, however you can put that file together. If you're constructing it manually, you can go ahead and do that. If you have a way to copy and paste a bunch of data and send it in, you can do that. If you can run a script to pull information from other data sources and construct a field like that, as long as it adheres to the proper format and field constraints of the template, then you can go ahead and do that. Pretty much however you can construct the CSV file in the proper format and it will parse, that is fine. You could take that in. I hope that answers the question per the intent of it, and if not, I hope it provided some good overall information there. Thank you.
Well, that's about all the time we have for questions in this Q&A panel. A huge thank you to our presenters and panelists for answering numerous questions that came in during our Q&A session. We'll now transition into our lunch break until 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Enjoy your lunch.